Welcome. Welcome to tonight's meeting of the Zoning Board of Adjustment of the Township of Union, which is being held pursuant to the Open Public Meeting Law, C-231, Laws of New Jersey, dated 1975. Notice of this meeting was advertised in the local source and the Star Ledger, the two newspapers of record, and notice has been posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building adjacent to the municipal clerk's office. Roll call.
Mr. Bentavagina.
Here.
Mr. Johnson.
Here.
Mr. Wiley.
Here.
Miss Alexander.
Here.
Miss Martins.
Here.
Miss Scott.
Here.
Mr. McNeil is absent. Mr. Graves.
Here.
And Mr. Champy.
Here. There being a quorum present, this meeting is now declared open. At this time, I'll entertain a motion and a second for the approval of the January 18th meeting minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the meeting minutes of January 18, 2023 be approved as written and dispense with their reading.
Second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved.
Mr. Chairman, make note that I was not here at the last meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Wiley. Mr. Monguso, are there any communications at this time?
There are no communications, Mr. Chairman.
All right, then we can proceed with tonight's meeting. Our first and only item on the agenda is calendar number 3409, Enterprise Rent-A-Car, located at 2088 Springfield Avenue, Block 4816, Lot 5.01, and it's for the retail rental of automobiles. Counselor?
That matter's ready, Mr. Chairman. Microphone over here?
Yes.
For the record, Gregory Hock, I'm an attorney with the firm of Darcy Johnson Day, Toms River, New Jersey, here on behalf of applicant LRAC. LRAC is essentially the holding company for Enterprise Rent-A-Car. You're probably all somewhat familiar with the company. You've probably seen their commercials. They're a neighborhood retail rental business, which essentially operates in two fashions. Folks can come to the site and rent a car, but you've probably seen the commercials. We pick you up. So a lot of what we do is we bring the car to the customer as well. We have a site here in town at 2088 Springfield that is currently being used as basically sort of a contractor's warehouse. Site's a little tired, site's a little untidy. We're looking to come in, clean it up, change the use of part of the building. Better? There we go. Change the use of part of the building to our operation, which is going to consist of the retail center for the customers to come in and transact business, a little bit of office for the minimal staff that's there to take care of the customer, and of course then some site improvements to handle not only our employees' cars, but our inventory, we call it, cars as well. We are proposing to obviously enhance the aesthetics of this property. We're going to cut back your coverage. It's basically all paved right now, next to no landscaping. So we're going to open that up. We're going to propose some landscaping, make the site a little prettier, add some buffers for you. We do abut a residential zone. We appreciate that. So we're going to add some buffers, try and bring some landscaping, some new paving, and really just improve the site itself from a physical standpoint, also an aesthetic standpoint, give it a little more curb appeal. We do feel that this use is actually a lot less intense than what is there now, what can be there as of right, and we hope to explain that to you in more detail through our professionals. I have with me here tonight Rick Adelson, our professional engineer and planner, as well as Constance Slempiak, who is our licensed architect that prepared the plans. And with that, I ask that Mr. Adelson be sworn.
Yes, so for the record, Mr. Chairman, board members, the council, I marked A1, the application as submitted by LRAC. I pre-marked A2, the site plans of Richard Allison, Frank Lear and Associates, that dated December 1st of 2022, which consists of 7 sheets. A3 is the one-page survey of Peter Borbis as the surveyor, and A4 is the concept plan and the elevations that put forth by CSP Architecture Group, dated November 30th of 2022, also one sheet. So A1 through A4 for the record. Obviously, too, we referred to January 12th, 2023 for
We do.
Okay, thank you.
We do. We would just add one, a change. The original plan that you just marked, I think, is the digital one that's going to come up on the screen. We do have a paper copy which was slightly revised to add some of the lighting detail that
Run
the
with
engineer.
numbers in sequence from now. So
Very
page
good.
5 and mark as we go, any change.
Sounds good, thank you.
Can the witness hear me?
Yes.
Can I ask you to raise your right hand and swear or affirm that the testimony you provide this evening is the truth and the whole truth?
I do.
If you could state and spell your name with your business affiliation.
Richard Adelson, Adelsohn, with the firm of Frank H. Lehr, Lehr Associates, 101 South Harrison Street, East Orange, New Jersey.
Thank you.
We'd offer him as a licensed professional engineer and planner in the state of New Jersey. Could you just briefly put your qualifications on the
Sure.
record?
I have a Bachelor of Science and a Master's of Science in Civil Engineering from New Jersey Institute of Technology. I'm a licensed engineer in New Jersey, as well as 8 other states. Also a licensed planner in New Jersey. I've appeared before, I'm not sure that I've appeared before the Planning Board or the Board of Adjustment here in Union, but definitely one or both of those in the past. I've been practicing since 1990.
Mr. Hawk will accept his credentials.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Rick, your office prepared the site plan before the board, correct?
That is correct.
All right, could you tell us a little bit about where this property is and what exists?
Sure, let's see if I can figure out how to do this. I'm gonna open. Let's close that.
There we go.
Yeah, maybe not.
Is that the change rendering that you're referring to, counsel, the colorized?
No, this is the cover sheet.
That is the original exhibit you've already marked.
Oh, because I didn't mark the colorized version of the plan.
Oh,
That-
okay.
They're printed in black and white on paper.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this would be then a little different if the black and
Do
white.
you have a hard copy of that or no? Would be
My-
colorized?
I have the hard copy is colorized as well.
You have a colorized copy of that?
Yes,
We
I
do.
do.
Yeah, like, why don't we note the colorized version as A5
Very good.
Okay.
for the record? All 7 pages as well?
Yeah, Rick, if you could just indicate how many pages there are, and I guess the date of the plan would be helpful.
7 pages. They are all still dated 12/1/22.
Thank you.
So the site is located at 2088 Springfield Avenue. It's located between Byron Terrace and Rosalind Place. The site itself is a 21,466 square foot parcel, and it keeps highlighting. With about 170 linear feet of frontage along Springfield Avenue. It's surrounded to the, north is up to the right, to the east, by a used car dealership. To the rear and to the side, and to kind of, it's a kind of a trapezoidal piece of property. So we have residential behind us, residential to the left, and an empty parking lot all the way to the left there. Nice. Just-
Because I can't hear what you're saying.
Okay.
And maybe we get into the current improvements on the site?
Sure. Come on. Sorry, a little temperamental.
There we go.
So currently located on the site is a 2-story converted residence along the front, and then a 1-story masonry building about 4,700 square feet to the rear. The remainder of the site is currently paved, right up to the street, right up to the property lines. There is a dilapidated fence along the north side of joining the residence. There are some old racks there from a contractor's yard, and depending upon when you were there last, there may or may not be a bunch of construction debris sprawled across the back in the area where we're showing stacked parking. Fence along the front of the property is a wrought iron fence in need of some TLC. And we have a single driveway out onto Springfield Avenue.
Okay, and our improvements as far as the buildings really are solely focused on the rear building, and we're making some changes there, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Starting, I guess, with the site improvements, first off, I guess all the outdoor storage of the construction debris and the sort of tchotchke that's around the site, that's all going away?
That all goes away.
Okay.
Correct.
That's going to be eliminated, and tell us what else we're going to be doing to the site improvements themselves as part of our proposal.
So for our site improvements, we have interior improvements, which I'll get into just a little bit with the building. But for starters, we're going to be removing a band of pavement around the perimeter, about 10 feet wide around the edge of the parking lot, to give us some open space, some buffer, and to give us some area for plantings. We are going to be removing and replacing fence. The fence along the west side of the property is in very good shape to along that residence, but once you get past that residence, the fence becomes dilapidated. We'll put in a new PVC fence, 6 foot high, as a screen fence between the residences and this property. We intend to pave the parking lot, restripe it, and then there are facade improvements as well, so.
And those changes to the pavement will reduce our impervious by about over 12%?
By removing the pavement, we're reducing the impervious coverage on this lot by about 12%.
Okay. Our parking complies?
Our parking, we have 14 parking spaces proposed, including 1 handicap space, and we will provide 1 EV space, make ready most likely.
But we do need a variance because some of that parking is technically in the front yard.
We do need a variance because that parking's in the front yard. The existing parking lot is in that front yard, and we're continuing to use that.
Got it.
But we are adding a buffer for separation on that.
And then the other cars we show on the plan there before the board, that's basically the inventory cars, correct?
Those are inventory cars. We also have 12 stacked parking spaces for inventory cars.
And that's going to be solely operated by the employees? That customers don't park, they don't move those cars?
That is
That's all
correct.
jockeyed by the employees as needed?
Yes.
Okay. And what are we doing in the building? I guess maybe some interior improvements, adding some office space there?
Let's see if I can switch to Exhibit A1. Got it. So what we're doing with that rear building, we are refitting a portion of that building for enterprise, creating some desks, some office space for rentals. We're also creating a two-car car wash bay for it, so we can we can prep the cars in an interior space. Enterprise gets about 2,135 square feet. The remainder remains with the contractor, where he's moving his storage inside and creating an office in the front, right corner there.
And that car cleaning area, that's not a car wash open to the public or anything, that's solely for the use of
No.
enterprise to clean their inventory?
No, that's a glorified hand wash system, the hand wash and pressure wash.
Got it, okay. And could you describe how the runoff from that area is handled?
So that water gets collected into through an interior oil water separator and then goes out to the sanitary sewer because that's dirty water.
Okay. And we'll obviously apply for any required permits for water sewer for that, et cetera?
Correct.
Okay. You talked a little bit about the landscaping. Could you touch on lighting?
Sure.
How are we affecting the lighting here?
Let's just flip here. Nope. Okay.
And I'm impressed with your ability to do that, because I couldn't, so that was...
Yeah, I just can't figure out which way works better. The touch screen's touchy. So for site lighting, we are proposing 4 pole-mounted fixtures and 3 building-mounted fixtures. We are using a shoebox-style fixture, a decent-looking shoebox mounted. The poles are at 14 feet around the perimeter. The light poles on the block building in the back, the building-mounted lights in the building in the back are mounted at 14. The light fixture mounted on the residence, the old residence, is about 12 foot. Gives us an average light level of about 3.3 foot candles. The intent is Enterprise operates, weekdays are 8 to 5, Saturdays 9 to noon, and Sunday they're closed. So the intent is when they close at the end of the day, the perimeter lights will shut off, and the remaining lights will go to a security mode at a reduced light level. So we'll reduce our light levels just to security levels when we're not operating.
And the lights on the back of the site facing the adjacent residential zone, they'll be turned off.
Those lights will be turned off. They are not facing, they're actually shining inward. They're cut off, they're sharp cut-off fixtures. They're only at 14 feet. We have a 6-foot fence. The spillage, even while they're on, should be absolutely minimal on the property line, but they'll be off, so they won't be shining in windows or anything like that.
So
at
you
night.
don't see any negative impact on the adjacent residential zone?
No negative impact from the lighting at all.
Okay. How are we handling trash here?
Trash is, Enterprise keeps a 2-yard dumpster inside their building that they have, their vendor who, their carter has a key to and comes in, pulls out the dumpster when they come to collect it, and then they take it away, so the dumpster is contained inside the property.
There was a comment about the signage. The board professionals called out a possible variance. We're going to reduce the size of the sign by the 1 inch, so we're going to comply. Is that correct?
Yes, yeah. So the architectural plans show a sign 4'1" by 20'5". That's going to get reduced to 4 foot even by 20'5", which complies with the ordinance.
So we're eliminating that variance request. Okay.
That's correct.
As to other bulk standards on the site, again, you touched on coverage. We're reducing it from 98 to about 86.2%.
Correct.
Okay, and do you feel that improves the safety from flood on the site in furtherance of the purposes of zoning?
Anytime we can reduce impervious coverage, that helps with reducing runoff, that's a positive. We're also disconnecting, which is another thing we try to do with stormwater, so that the water runs through a green surface before it goes off, so that also helps with a little bit of cleaning before we discharge, because the water runs out to the street.
Okay.
So that's a positive.
So again, we are over on coverage, but that's a pre-existing condition which we're improving. Is that correct?
Yes.
And we touched on the parking in the front yard. You've had an opportunity to review the adjacent development up and down this road, correct?
I have.
Do you feel the parking in the front yard is in keeping with the character of this general area?
Yes, it is. I have an exhibit. I don't know how
Yeah,
that works.
we could probably mark that separately. We have an aerial exhibit, aerial photo?
I don't have that digitally, I'm afraid.
We don't, right?
I don't.
Why don't we grab it, or if we could just show it to the board, just briefly, why you describe the area.
A6 for the record, aerial exhibit.
So A6 is an aerial exhibit. Google bird's eye view of the parking lot and of the region, of the general area. You see the enterprise site, the proposed enterprise site in the center. You see the used car facility right next to us, with parking all the way out in the front yard. Residents to our west, residential around us, we have a couple multifamily houses in that mix. Across the street, we have commercial, and you'll notice that there's parking along the frontages of Springfield Avenue in many of these cases, so.
And again, our condition is pre-existing, we're not making it any worse.
We're not changing it, we're making it better by putting some landscaping there, but it is very much a condition that exists along Springfield Avenue.
Thank you. All right, the last item we want to talk about is the D1 variance. Technically, the board professionals did call out a use variance here. I know, I can tell you, I had some academic discussions with your zoning officer before we came here about whether it was conforming or not. He was on the fence, Mr. Manguso, but ultimately it was decided that it technically didn't. You know, our position, this is retail rental of automobiles, which is not listed as a permitted use, is that correct?
That retail rental of automobiles, as far as I can tell, is not a listed use anywhere in your ordinance.
And an outdoor, I guess it would be an outdoor storage component, which is our vehicles, which is technically not permitted as well.
It is permitted where you have, I believe, 100 feet of separation in some zones, and buffering and things, et cetera.
So how do you feel this use compares to the other permitted uses, and the overall flavor and intent of the DT zone within which?
So DT is a transitional zone. It's allowed, permitted uses are either your downtown core uses or your neighborhood core uses. So uses that would be permitted here are restaurants, car service with less than 3 vehicles is a permitted use, car service with more than 3 vehicles, a conditional use. Parking lots are also permitted uses. Now, often car rentals are considered a retail business. Basically, you have retail people picking up cars, and the cars are just parked in the parking lot. In this, you can look at it as a retail business with parking. You can look at it as a retail business with some minor service for the car wash bay. But each individual component, parking is also a permitted use in this zone. So each individual component is a permitted use. Certainly, this is a lower intensity use than something like a restaurant or a large service center or something like that, which also, as I said, would be permitted uses. So we think this fits relatively well within the zone, even though it's not a specifically permitted use.
So some other permitted uses in this zone, according to your ordinance, are restaurants, brew pubs, places of assembly, let's see here, fitness centers, and childcare centers. Is it fair to say that the intensity from a traffic and customer-based standpoint is a lot higher than what we're proposing?
Yes, in all of those uses.
Okay. And do you feel then that this particular use does promote the purposes of zoning in some fashion as well?
Yes, it does. This is particularly suited for this site. For one thing, if you look at it, we're going to basically move in and occupy this space. We're putting a small partition up. We're not making a lot of major changes. We've elected to remove pavement. We've elected to improve fencing for buffers. But the reality is we could move in there tomorrow and just occupy this space. From a real estate perspective, it is a great location for us. We're moving out of a location down the road in Milburn. This keeps us in the same market, keeps us in the same neighborhood. We looked at lots of other land. This is the best we found from a business perspective. It also, as Mr. Hawk indicated, we serve the neighborhoods. So we want to stay in the same neighborhood. We want to be in the neighborhood. We want you to, if you need a car and you're around the corner, walk to us, we'll drive a car to you. But, again, we want to be in the neighborhood, so that works well. And it fits with the neighborhood. Again, it's a lower intensity use. It's a good transitional use. Certainly, if you look at the car rental company we're not doing that. We're not parking out on the street. We're not filling the parking lot with cars, packing it like that. It's a lower intensity use.
And the stated purposes of the downtown transition zone is to be that transitional type of use between residential and other commercial uses permitted, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
And that would fit this. So you've talked about why the site's particularly suited. Do you feel other purposes of zoning, such as aesthetics, are improved by this
Sure.
site?
We've just flipped back to the architecture just a little bit. Actually, I'm going to go back. It's in the set. Come on. Not going to move. Okay? And we're going to live with that picture. So what you see is a relatively vanilla building right now. It's a plain brick building, it's painted yellow, nothing exciting, it doesn't look great. What we're proposing to do, maybe. Okay, maybe we're not proposing to do. If you look at the packages that you have, the architectural rendering shows some stone masonry along the bottom to decorate the facade. We're dressing up the facade. So we're greatly improving the aesthetic of the building. We are adding a border landscaping around the site. We're adding an understory for the landscaping. So we're improving light and air. We're improving desirable visual environment. I mean, all betterments furthering the land use.
And of course, like we talked about before, the increased impervious area promotes safety from flooding, correct?
The reduction in impervious area,
Okay.
again, promotes the flooding.
And in your professional opinion, as a planner, those reasons support the granting of this minor, I'll call it a minor D1 use variance because it's pretty close to permitted but not. Is
Yeah.
that correct?
Yes.
Okay, do you see any negative detriment that will come out of this to the residents or the adjoining landowners?
Again, I think we're a lower intensity use. I think we're a lower intensity use than the construction yard that was there. I'm sure that when that yard was being used in its heyday, it was, contractors showing up at 6 o'clock in the morning and throwing stuff in the back of a pickup truck, banging and clanking, and, I mean, we don't do that. We don't open till 8 o'clock in the morning. We're closed at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. So it's a much more neighborhood-friendly use. So I don't see this as a negative. at all.
So therefore, is it your conclusion that the variances can be granted without substantial detriment to the public good of the zone plan?
Yes.
Okay. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
At this time, are there any board members that would like to question this witness on the testimony he has given? Ms. Alexander?
Hi, good evening.
How are you?
I just wanted to ask about the other enterprises. There's one on 22, Highway 22 in Union. There's one on Mars Avenue in Union, and you said there's one in Milburn. So those three.
Milburn is closing.
Okay, so, but I'd like you to use Milburn. Those three enterprises, could you tell me what the traffic situation was like that and how many parking spaces did they have? Do they use? I just need to kind of know to compare. Oh, good.
We do have a representative of the applicant who could maybe testify to those
You
operational
could
questions.
testify to that? Okay, I can
I'm only
I can wait.
superficially aware of this.
Okay, I can wait.
Okay.
I think one thing that I can ask Mr. Chairman, this is Rob Hansel, the board attorney. The first page of your site plan showed a stacked parking situation. That is not part of the 14 spaces, right? That is the spaces for the inventory?
That is correct. That's just inventory. The 14 spaces are properly
It
delivered.
looked like about 14,
Are-
that's why I was asking.
It's 12, those are 12 stacked spaces. The proper parking spaces are 14. So yes, it's about the same.
So the intention is to have those spaces filled with inventory in and out?
Yes,
On a regular basis?
correct.
Including overnight or including?
Yes,
The cars aren't being rented or ready to be rented? correct?
yes.
One more question.
Ms. Alexander?
Okay, I'm just sorry, one more question. So the space that you're looking to take, how many staff would be there taking up the 14 parking spaces?
So,
I mean, using the 14 parking spaces?
Enterprise anticipates hiring 5 people for this location.
Okay.
And we would expect that 2 to 3 would be on site at any given time.
2 to 3. Oh, thank you.
And one of those has a company vehicle that falls into the mix, if I'm not
Okay.
mistaken.
Ms. Scott?
Okay. Good evening. I did hear you say it was neighborhood friendly, but if the 14 parking spaces are the 12 stacked cars parking spaces, where would the customers that did have a vehicle that was dropping somebody off to come and rent another car, where would they park at?
They would park in one of those 14 parking spaces.
So, okay, so that's the 14.
Yeah, the 12
Our
stacked.
customer and employees are for the 14.
Okay. So how many cars would you have on any given day to actually rent?
They come in and they go out, and they rotate. They have other facilities in the area so that when they need to, they shuffle cars around. And as the discussion was, that they often deliver cars and pick up people, so there are maybe other spaces available. So at least, I mean, they expect to maintain at least a dozen, and hopefully maybe a few more in the other spaces, but that will fluctuate based on need.
So do you have any designated area for just customer parking?
Again, the 14 spaces are intended to be used for
The cars are stacked
customer and
somewhere
employees.
else.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
The cars are
Mr.
stacked
Manguso.
somewhere else.
We talked about washing cars,
Yes, sir.
okay? What do we do with vehicle maintenance? Like oil changes, any, off-site?
All off-site.
Okay. The second thing I want to ask you is can we pull up,
I I think I may have broken it, so I don't know.
Okay. Well, let's
Let's try
talk
that.
about,
Yeah, see if-
let's
see if
talk
I-
about the
Let
shrubs.
me see if I can close Adobe and whether it will come back.
Maybe it'll come back up.
Let's talk about the plantings.
Ah, sure. I think I'm in luck. I can do that. I'm in luck.
Thank you.
So we are proposing, not that I can read it, but I'm going to read it this way. So we have horn beams along the street frontage.
I'm sorry, you said what?
Horn beams?
Okay,
Street-
height?
Good, nice street trees.
What's
We
the height on
have-
them?
I'm sorry, no, I'm sorry, we have lindens along the street. We have mixture of horn beams, the trees that are shown on the
Mm-hmm.
sides. And then we also have arborvitae along the rear.
Okay.
And we have white pines on that side. We have an understory of ornamental grasses, holly, mugo pine, and spirea and lilac mixed in for landscaping.
And the front? I
In the
just
front.
want it, what are we doing with the, how are we doing at the front? Is that a mixture?
That's a mixture, yeah. So you
So-
have the spirea. I can't zoom out and show you the kit table and give you the keys. It's a mix.
Standard height, what are we talking about shrubs?
So it's the front row are grasses, those little semicirculars are grasses, and we have low, 3-foot-high shrubs.
36 inches?
Yeah, 36
Okay.
inches. So
And how far is that from the curb? Because I'm starting to wonder about sight lines here, because we do have a 30-inch height, sight line restriction pulling out of there.
So the,
Because Springfield Avenue gets very busy.
yes.
And just, I know that there's on-site parking, and I know how, but people will not pull in that parking lot and drop people off on Springfield Avenue to run in there, to drop people off. I flew in this area a lot, so I'm very familiar with the businesses and everything that goes on there. But one of my concerns is the height of these shrubs and the sight lines as opposed to when you're pulling out in the street. Because that's important.
All of the plantings are in that 2 to 3 foot range, and should be low enough that you can see through them with that your eye height should be above them safely to not preclude them. And we can mix our plantings to make sure that we keep the lower ones in the sight line without any problem.
Okay, because then when we change the height, then you can see. I guess the buffer was so you didn't really see the, correct?
Yes.
Okay, fair enough.
It's-
So if we keep them lower, which we do have a 30-inch height,
Yes.
you know.
I mean, 30 inches is, there are very few cars, I think, that you sit lower than 30, with your eyes below 30 inches.
Correct,
Yeah,
but-
I think we're happy to work with the board professionals. If you want to dial that in on the final
Well,
plan.
my just concern is
Yeah.
it's a very short driveway.
Right.
Yes.
I mean,
Exactly.
There's no, that's the site. See, it's a very short driveway.
Yes.
So before you even realize, your nose is already on the sidewalk.
Right.
Okay.
And I think we're happy to adjust the plan based on your recommendation, your board engineer.
Well, I would defer that to the engineer.
Yeah,
I'm only
absolutely.
bringing it up, because
Sure.
like I said, I'm very familiar with the area, I'm very fluent, and, I frequent it a lot because of the businesses there and the construction that's going on, so I'm very familiar with the site, and I know it's it's not just that, they're all short.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So it's a
But
concern.
we have no problem keeping those shrubs low, keeping those shrubs in the site triangle low. That's not a problem.
Well, again, I would defer all of that to the engineering department to do another, to do with my concerns, and I've had mentioned this before.
Sure.
Mr. Allison, is it safe to assume that if the inventory levels of the applicant are met, that those additional vehicles that are shown on your current site plan would park in some of those spaces that are on the grounds?
If there are spaces available, it's possible that they would park there, yes. Otherwise, they would probably shuttle them off-site.
Mr. Benavenga?
Where would your off-site shuttle be? Like, so you're saying.
You mean other
could-
locations?
So you're saying if you have, if you're overload, so let's go back to, you just said that Maplewood is being closed?
Milburn.
Millburn. So I drive by there frequently. There's more than 20 cars there at a time. It's very busy, big SUVs. So basically, you have 26 parking spots on the new site, correct?
Correct.
Based on what Mr. Pensu said. So you would say that the overload would be going in those other spots
They would wind up.
that are being used for customers and employees?
Yes.
Okay.
And we do have operational.
Operational questions, if you want, we have an enterprise gentleman here. Or gentleman.
And that's not even including people that are just coming back to return vehicles,
Correct.
which you don't know? Okay,
No,
thank you.
I'm only raising it because obviously I'm the board attorney, I don't vote, but I went over the site with Mr. Manguso for the zoning review part. And the distinction in my mind for the board's edification is it's not simply retail, as council indicated and the planner has testified. The outdoor storage feature of the rental car business is what is distinguishable in my mind, and legally, I'd offered that opinion from a regular retail operation. Regular retail is not going to have racks of clothes and things for sale on the outside areas. As a matter of fact, it's probably prohibited in some degree. But that was the thing I was getting. I just want to be clear, the board is clear, that Mr. Manguso's zoning opinion that gets the applicant to this board is tied in to the operational feature of the rental car business with the outdoor storage.
Understood.
Are there any other board members at this time that would like to question Mr. Adelson?
I just do have, I have one more just question, so is this going to take the place of Millburn?
Yes.
Okay.
Any other board members that would like to question this witness? Hearing none. At this time, we'll open it up to the public. Are there any members of the public that would like to come forward and question the testimony that this witness has given? Hearing none. Mr. Hawk, your next witness.
Thank you. We have Patrick Cosgrove. He's with Enterprise and LRAC that can, I think, maybe address some of those open operational questions the board members had. If we could get you sworn in by the board attorney?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Rob Mansoul, the board attorney. Can I ask you to raise your right hand and swear or affirm that the testimony you provide this evening is the truth and the whole truth?
I do.
If you could state and spell your name for the record with your business affiliation.
Patrick Cosgrove, Cosgrove. I am a property and facility manager with Enterprise Holdings, or LRAC, Enterprise Rent-A-Car.
So I'd offer him to the board as to those questions you had before. I know a couple board members had some operational questions.
Ms. Alexander.
Oh. Okay, so I was saying, I was saying that Millburn, the one on 22, Highway number 22, right there, and then the one on Morris Avenue.
Yes.
I know what the lot looks like on Morris Avenue, and I think I know the one 22. They hold how many and how many cars come, and how many did you have in Millburn too, coming through on the average, just say?
On an average day, there's probably, from a transaction standpoint, anywhere from 20 to 40 transactions that might occur on average on a daily basis.
20 or 40?
Each location that you mentioned, I'm sorry, okay. Services a different part of town, has different core accounts, meaning body shops, dealerships, things like that. So each location is a different size when we talk about fleet or transactions. Hillside's a very small location
Yeah.
from that standpoint.
Very small.
They don't service a very big part of town, but because of traffic restrictions and things like that, customer service is a big part of what we do. So in order for us to service that community, we felt a long time ago, opening up a location at that 22 location.
And do you take
was
the
important.
cars to the person? Is that, because there are not many lots there if you do 20?
There's a mix.
Oh.
In certain instances, we deliver the cars. In certain instances, we will bring them to a local body shop or dealership where the customer might be waiting. In instances, customers come to us. So there's a mix of it all. Hillside, forgive me, I'd want to say there's probably about 20 parking spots at Hillside. Morris Avenue, we probably have about 75 parking spaces. That's a very big property. LRAC and Enterprise actually just purchased that property and the property next door, so
Oh, okay.
we actually might be back in front of this board in a short time to talk about that, but we'll leave that. And then Millburn, that's the facility we're leaving. Yes, that is a busy facility. Part of the reason our landlord, the owner of that property, is the Audi dealership. So we share that parking lot with Audi. We share that car wash that's in the back. So part of that parking lot is not solely ours, we share with them. But our lease is up there where they want it all back for the use of.
And can I just ask, how many parking spaces did you have in Millburn?
I believe there to be probably somewhere in the mid-20s
Okay.
at that location. But that's shared with the Audi dealership across the street.
And you clearly feel with just 14, you could function?
Well, there's the 14, we consider them kind of ready spaces. So we will either leave them open for customers bringing their personal cars on to do a transaction, or that's kind of where we park the cars that are ready to go, right? They're clean, all of that ready to give to a customer. Then we have the stack parking, which primarily will be used for either overflow, if we have more than that 14, or we'll put the dirty cars there until they get cleaned and prepped, and then we bring them over to the ready spaces.
All right, thank you.
Are there any other board members that would like to question Mr.
Yes.
Cosgrove? Mr.
Cosgrove,
Benevent.
just if you can clarify more on the overload. I think you mentioned there was another designated area that you'd be bringing cars.
Well, for the locations we're talking about, actually Hillside, Millburn here, that, the one on Morris Avenue, that a lot of our overflow goes there because we know we have the room. Like I said, it's probably a minimum 75 cars we can fit there. So if we do have overload, we'll bring them there and then filter them back as needed.
Okay. Also, are customers allowed to park their car there? So say they wanted to rent the car, but they have their own vehicle. Are they allowed to park it on site?
During the transaction, yes, but like overnight while they leave, no.
Right, so if they're going to rent the car, can they leave their personal car there? So
No,
that's not permitted?
No, we wouldn't permit that.
Okay, and I think it was mentioned before, car wash on site, no maintenance, no vehicle repairs or oil changes done there?
All done off-site at Goodyear. We contract to local shops for those repairs.
Thank you.
Are there any other board members that would like to question Mr. Cosgrove?
Yes, I do. You mentioned you do 20 to 40 transactions
In a single day,
in a single day. That's safe to say?
safe.
Is it the customers that always return the vehicles, right? You pick up a customer conceivably, but they could return the vehicle not necessarily 8 to 5, right? I mean, what happens if they are catching a plane or something and they gotta come back and drop off at 10 at night? I mean, they have that ability or no?
Depending on the location and the accessibility, we strategically have after-hour drop-offs at certain facilities. So again, like the Morris Avenue,
Yeah.
it can handle the volume. It's not a closed parking lot, so our customers can access, park in the back. We have a drop box there where somebody can return after hours. At Hillside, or at this location we're proposing on Springfield, we wouldn't permit it. So we would instruct the customer if they needed to return after hours, go to the store on Morris Avenue, and you can do it there.
Mr. Chairman, just a quick question. So I see in the exhibit, looks like there's an electric gate.
Yes,
Are you guys keeping that?
we plan to, yes,
Okay, so basically you could say that after hours, there's no cars that are going to be returned.
correct.
Okay, thank you.
And there would be signage placed on that fence instructing customers of the same.
Saying
In your
go to
opinion,
Morris
you would
Avenue.
say that they could maybe park on the street if If when they drive and they notice that it's closed?
Sure, yes, I mean, we can't really determine what that customer is gonna do. We can instruct them the best we can, saying they're responsible for the vehicle, we don't accept returns after hours. Fortunately, we can't
But
police
would
if
you
they
put
park
up a
the car
sign
on
that
the
said, return car to 22 tomorrow?
Yeah, yeah.
Right,
we
we could
direct
advise
to a
them that
location.
there's another location
Yeah.
for after hours.
Right, but in your
Absolutely.
opinion, if someone came there not knowing, they didn't get the email, whatever you guys send out, you could maybe say they would park in front just to get rid of the car?
It's possible,
Okay, thank you.
sure. But I don't think there'd be any way for us to,
Yeah, that wouldn't be
To stop
condoned,
that.
clearly. I mean, no, that's not what we want or we're hoping for, no. Absolutely not. Yeah, I mean, I suppose it could, but again, I mean, you'd be leaving it off-site, you know, that would not be what's agreed to in the rental agreement. You have to bring it back to a operating site, so.
correct.
So, just one question. So some of the enterprises have the key drop-off. So this enterprise would not have that, like he's saying, if somebody wanted to come up and put the car in the street, there wouldn't be anywhere for them to actually put the key.
Right.
Some enterprises have the key drop-off where you can leave
Correct.
the key in.
One of the locations does,
Correct.
correct, the other location.
We have, yeah, we have an actual key, it's like almost a standing safe where you pull the drawer out, you put the key in. Yeah.
This operation was proposed to close at 5 o'clock weekdays?
Yes.
Did I hear that correct? Is that
Mhm.
that in the record?
Correct.
So if somebody's trying to traverse to get there by 5, I mean, you know what the traffic's like in that area, and if they
Well-
can't get there,
We're,
what is their option then? Do they leave the car, as Mr. Pennsylvania is saying, or do they then try to get from Union in the Vauxhall section to Hillside at 5 o'clock, which is also near impossible?
if, where, customer service is a big part of what we do, right? So if the customer is communicating that to us, we're not locking the doors and leaving at 5. Very rarely, you know, we're still there doing some administrative duties and things like that. So we're never gonna leave that customer in the lurch, so to speak. But sure, there's instances, and it happens, right, where your intention is to get there before 5 and you don't. So we can make arrangements, hey, bring the car home, you know, we'll talk about, you know, making adjustments to your bill if you bring it back the next day. Like, we do try to provide a lot of flexibility, but sure, there are instances where, yes, a customer's not gonna get there before we close.
In terms of time, I'm not sure if you said this, but I think you did. You said 9 to 12 on Saturday?
Saturdays, 9 to noon, yes.
Why such a short window?
You know, it's kind of been our standard hours for, you know, I've been with the company over 20 years, and that's pretty much been our normal home city markets. We do 8 to 5, 9 to noon on Saturdays. That's pretty much where the peak and the bulk of our business comes from, and those have been determined the peak times. We do have select locations, and they're few and far between, that have Sunday hours, or we're close enough here to Newark Airport. So if there are those needs on a Sunday, we can still accommodate with locations that are closer by.
Are there any other board questions? Hearing none, are there any members of the public that would like to question the testimony Mr. Cosgrove has given this evening? Hearing none, Mr. Hawk, you have another witness?
We do have an architect available, but I think all the board's questions have been answered, unless somebody wants to hear more specifics about the design and structure of the building. But other than that, we would leave it at that, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Are there any board members that would like to make a comment on this application? Hearing none, are there any members of the public that would like to comment on this application? Hearing none, Counselor, would you like to sum up? Oh, excuse me.
Is it at all possible to think about this further? Because it seems, maybe it's just me, it seems that, okay, so you might make arrangements to bring the car home. We have 14 parking spaces, they may overflow, we may have to do the stacking. If it's stacked and cars are there, I guess we have to wait to move them. We're going to take the cars if no customers there, and we're going to put them in the parking spaces. There's no key box for people who might be late or whatever we just said we do. I don't know. Is it, before we make a decision on this, is it possible to kind of think about all of this and,
So I think the next step is for the board, when council's going to close up, I don't know if anybody from the public offered a comment.
oh, okay.
No, they did not.
We got one comment.
I think we have some.
All right, thank you.
Come forward,
I'll wait.
That's fine. Yep, absolutely.
right over here.
Absolutely.
Good evening. Just need to state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. Bertha Matthews, 355 Stiles Street, Vauxhall. Did you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Alrighty, I live very close to this site, and I just want to make the comment that it will be a negative impact to an already negatively impacted area. And I request that the board deny this application. Thank you.
Are there any other members of the public that would like to make a comment?
I do have a question, I just want to ask. When you come out of the driveway, does it you can go both ways, correct?
I think Rick can answer that.
Yes, that is what's planned.
Sometimes it's tough to cross over Springfield Ave to go north.
Mr. Hawk, would you like to sum up?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I can appreciate the comments from the public, but I think the point here is to fix some of the problems. She thinks, I got the sense, doesn't like the way the site operates now, and we recognize that, you know, there is a lot of debris out there, there's a lot of garbage out there. As Rick mentioned, it's a contractor's warehouse. A lot of things going on, a lot of noises, a lot of smells, a lot of odors. That comes with construction, that type of business. With our proposal, that's all going to go away. This is going to be run by a very large corporate entity. Their purpose is to make this work because if it doesn't, it hurts their business. They're a very disciplined company. They have a way of operating. And again, we're going to clean up a lot of the aesthetics. We're adding buffers. We're going to improve drainage and flow, not only the site aesthetics, but the building aesthetics. And it's going to be a tightly controlled operation by corporate standards. So I think on par, this site is going to be a whole lot better than what's out there now, and a whole lot better than what not only the traveling public, but also the adjacent residential zones are faced with right now, for all the reasons that Rick placed on the record as far as cleaning up the site, enhancing the purposes of zoning. So I think we recognize that the site probably has issues now, and I think we're looking to make them a whole lot better. With that, we'd ask for your vote in favor.
All right, at this time, I believe we can conference this application. Mr. Benavenga, would you like to begin?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So based on the testimony, in my opinion, I feel that this operation is too big for this property. I just feel that being that Milburn is going to close down, that's going to be the center hub of that area. You're going to deal with Milburn, Maplewood, Short Hills, South Orange. I'm also, you know, I think you're going to get a lot more business than you're talking 20 to 40 people. The parking is a little fishy here to me, like 26 spots. I don't think he's going to cover it. I think it's a substantial impact to the residential area. It's not a permitted use. So unfortunately, I'm going to vote no tonight.
Ms. Martins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. After hearing the testimony that was provided today, I am concerned how this will impact the neighborhood. I'm also concerned how it, about the cars being stacked on the lot. So based off of that testimony provided today, I will be voting no.
Mr. Wiley.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I agree with my colleague. I don't like this application. I think it will be a negative impact on the community. I don't like the parking situation where, as if they close at 5 and nobody's there, they bring cars back. I know that area too, and there's usually a lot of cars already parked on the street, so what happens when the car come back and there's nowhere to park and no drop key? And like Mr. Benavides said, it's just too much for this area, and I'm voting no.
Ms. Scott.
I have to agree. I think the parking was little convoluted, and we didn't really good answers. And I also think it's already not a permitted use, and I didn't hear any testimony that would convince me otherwise. So, yeah, I would have to vote no.
Mr. Graves.
I would have to vote no. I feel it would be a negative impact on the community.
And Mr. Johnson.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. I agree with our fellow board members. It's a substantial impact to the residential area, and it's also a non-conforming use not permitted in the DT zone. So I would vote no.
As for myself, based on the testimony placed before, Ms. Alexander. So sorry.
Thank you, it's okay. But I too agree with my colleagues. I know it's an area that needs to, the aesthetics need to look better. We're just hoping that something else could be placed there, but this, I feel, is too big a project for this spot. So I'll be voting no.
As for myself, based on the testimony placed before the board this evening, I feel the applicant failed to prove and justify both the positive and negative criteria associated with the application and for the proposed use of this property. I feel the public interest would be best served by not permitting the proposed use. The proposal would impact the area and would impair the intent of the zoning ordinances. I too will vote no for this application. May I have a motion and a second?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the board deny the variance applicable to this application and that council is directed to prepare a resolution consistent with the board's decision.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Bentavegana?
Yes.
Ms. Martins?
Yes.
Ms. Alexander?
Yes.
Ms. Scott?
Yes.
Mr. Wiley?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
And Mr. Champy?
Yes.
I thank the board for its time and attention. Appreciate it.
February 15th, I'll put on for the resolution.
Mr. Chairman, there be no further business coming before the board this evening. I move we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So
Aye.
moved.
Warren, that's your thing.
That's yours?